Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact. Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I have with me Dr. Justine Weber. She is a California licensed psychologist and a coach helping people heal after a narcissistic relationship. She is certified in high conflict divorce coaching, and she recently wrote a book entitled, How the Fuck Do I Heal from This? Understanding Narcissistic Abuse and How to Put Your Life Back Together. Highly recommend. So in this episode, we're going to talk about everything from dealing with post-separation abuse, navigating co-parenting with a narcissist, and finding solace and healing in somatic therapy. Lots of good stuff in here. I hope you enjoy this episode with Dr. Justine Weber. Justine, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about your new book. How the fuck do I heal from this? And it's such a good question. How the fuck? How do we heal from this insanity?
Yeah, I hope you like the title. I think it says a lot. I notice a lot of the people that I work with are really just at this space where you're just like trying to wrap your head around all of this. It truly is like a mind fuck where you're just, oh my gosh, what just happened? What is real? What is not? Particularly when someone's been gaslit for so many years, which just has this effect of it destroys our sense of self, our intuition, our capacity to make decisions. We're just ridden with self-doubt, second guessing. Relationships like this, they just come in and they just suck everything out of you. And that's how they're able to control and manipulate even our thoughts, our making decisions, our interpretation with experiences, not trusting ourselves. So it's a lot.
Yeah. And really what we're talking about is what you've been through this and you've actually managed to claw your way out, right? Which does take a certain level of healing to be able to even recognize, to be able to objectively look and say, oh, this is not healthy. This is toxic. This, right? You know this, and you've done all this healing and now you're on the other side. And yet you're still like fraught with all of this. You're still like stuck with all this muck, right? You're still stuck. And it, for some of us, it can be really shocking that, oh, I'm out. Why does this still feel so bad? Why am I still getting sucked into the drama? Why am I, right? There's the post-separation abuse, but also there's the shit that we're still stuck with. And so I think there are two things here. There is, how do I shore myself up to deal with all of the post-separation abuse? But then there's also, oh my God, how the fuck do I heal from this?
I think it is this like lifelong commitment and journey, because what we know about trauma is it changes us. It shapes us. It actually changes the brain and our thinking and the way that we engage and connect with others and our interpretation. So when you're coming out on the other side, it's okay. Now what? How do I unstuck this, all this bad that I'm left with? How do I begin to develop and foster growth in a new direction? Because we will never go back to who we were before the trauma. And we're different. We're changed. The brain has changed. but this is all okay too. And when life gets like this, where it's just so bad and everything is coming at you, this is oftentimes what can inspire us and encourage us to do something different, to begin to really look at these things and examine them, piece these out, untangle it, self-reflect, find your truth, find clarity. It really, a lot of times when I start working with clients, they're like, how many sessions a week am I going to have to do before I'm feeling fine? How many months or weeks will I need to commit to this before I'm great?
A lot.
And I would love to give a simple answer, but it's just really does not work like that. It really is this day to day. If you think about if you had surgery and if you had like back surgery, the doctor wouldn't be like, okay, in a week you can start walking. It's like you would really take that time, be kind to yourself, get plenty rest, take it day by day. How do I feel? Am I able to stand up? Am I able to take a step? Am I able to do this yet? No, I'm hurting today. Okay, I'm going to go back and try to rest more. And I really feel like this type of healing is really very similar to that. It's the day to day, find the small wins, have a support system. You have to have a support system of people you're talking to for a sounding board, because we've been gaslit for so many years and you don't trust your intuition. You've lost your sense of self and your reality. How do you begin to regrow that and foster that from nothing? It's scary. How do you begin to trust when you don't trust? You're too scared and you're like second guessing you trusting yourself to make a decision. And so I think I've noticed having a sounding board of people around you, whether it's a therapist or friends, both, hopefully all of it, family, whoever that is, where you trust this person and they have a clear thinking mind, where when you're talking to them about something, again, it's this day-to-day stuff, carving those pathways in the brain of a new way of thinking and growing. And so the more conversations you're having with others or a therapist where you're like, this just didn't seem right. What are your thoughts about that? And someone else is able to validate, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that was really fucked up, or that was weird, or I didn't like that. It just validates your initial assumption, like, yeah, that seemed weird. That seemed off.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you say to women who are actually not asking those questions? So I know for myself, I was in so much denial when I got out. I was like, woohoo, I'm out, I'm free, I'm done. And it was like a slow burn. And it was a slow like a creeping up on me of, oh no, you're not okay. Oh no, your entire system has changed and is fucked. And I was in therapy, right? Because I knew enough to know that I had to be in there. I was in like analysis, like 3 days a week. I was in a lot of therapy, thank God. But I really wasn't cognizant of what had happened to me. And this is a long time ago. This is over 15 years ago. We weren't having these conversations. There was no Instagram, podcast. None of this was talked about. So what do you see that now, actually, as a therapist? Do you see people who aren't actually aware, or is it just because of the time that we just didn't have this information?
No, I definitely see that, where there's this kind of lack of awareness. There's still that confusion. They don't trust. And so when I always turn it back to the body, I do a fair amount of body work in my therapy, even not in my coaching business, but it all goes back to the nervous system because of how we carry trauma into the body. And so if people are not able to even ask those questions or begin to kind of carve out those pathways in the brain of a different way of looking at it and examining it and growing a different framework, turn it back to the body. What was this like for you? How did this feel? What did you notice? Just bring that kind of sense of curiosity and just what did you notice in your body? If you're not, I do have clients where, particularly the men, I don't know if it's just a gender thing. I don't think it is, but some of the men who have like severe anxiety or something like that. And I'll be like, how did you feel? I don't know. Annoyed. Okay. Annoyed. So let's sit with that and peel it away underneath that. Let's try to stick to maybe a primary emotion, because this is where we're going to get value, is identifying like what primary emotion is. Is it anger, fear, sadness, disgust, joy? And oftentimes, particularly when you're dealing with trauma, it's either like anger or fear. That is to a lot of it. And so you're able to connect with that and access that. I feel anger right now. I feel scared. Okay, let's sit with that. Where in the body are you noticing? This is like a mindfulness like strategy. I've been using this for years, but like, where in the body are you noticing sensations, even in this moment of fear? How do you know that you have fear right now? Is it in your throat? Is it in your stomach? Is it in are you sweating? Are you clenching your hands? And so it's just really this kind of like leaning into the body and the nervous system with this sense of just exploration, curiosity. And I noticed that this is where people can begin to develop vocabulary for what's going on in their internal world, is when they can identify in the moment how they feel, what sensations you're noticing. Why does it feel off to you? What did you notice about yourself or this person or this experience? This can oftentimes translate into vocabulary of talking more about what's going on.
Yeah. I love that. I think that the somatic work was not, again, like when I got divorced 15 years ago, somatic work was just not what we were doing. And so I was in a lot of talk therapy, but the idea of connecting with the body and that trauma, we didn't know a whole lot. We did, but not academically we did, but we certainly weren't, right? We were not talking about trauma the way that we are today. And so and so many of us, I think when we get out of these abusive relationships, the entire design of the relationship is to disconnect us from our self, our capital S self, to gaslight us, to disconnect us from that sense of knowing that something is wrong, all of those things. And so to learn to reconnect with self is such a tall order. And I think really working somatically would you say that is the first step, right? It's like, how does this feel? How do you feel? I remember I kept saying I have this knot in my like solar plexus, like I can't breathe past my solar like I had very specific physical sensations happening that we just didn't get unpacked and we didn't dive into because it just wasn't the work that was being done back then.
Oh, it just brings this whole nother realm of just this like world that you can't really necessarily see, but you're leaning. And whenever you ask those questions or just lean in, it's not even a matter of getting the answer right. It's just carving out those pathways in the brain of that leaning in and beginning to foster trusting yourself and your intuition. And another strategy I've noticed that is helpful is when people have noticed when they're able to self-reflect and say, what, I knew it was my intuition at this time with this person. I didn't lean into it. I second guessed, whatever it was. Go back and self-reflect. What did you notice? It's almost like savor the times when you did get it right. When you did get it right. What did you notice? Like, what were the maybe red flags that you saw or heard or felt when you were like, this doesn't seem right? Just practice what that feels like, and that when you did maybe disconnect from that, and then other times when you did lean in and it created different outcomes. Just practice what that feels like. This is all so hard and complex and layered. It's not step one, you do this. Step two, you do that. It really is this just beautiful dance that you play and explore and experiment with.
Yeah. And I love this idea of going back, right? Not to beat yourself up, by the way, right? Because I think the guilt and the shame is so prevalent when we go back and we're like, how did I miss this? How did I not see this? Why didn't I trust myself? Well, that's not the point, right? To be clear. But I do think it's a trap.
It's not the point at all. It's about what can I learn and understand about myself, about this experience, where I can take that and use that to grow and evolve and strengthen those parts of myself. Yeah, I know the guilt, the shame, and really a lot of negative, harsh talk is just part of the game. This happens to all of us. And whenever you notice that, be kind to yourself. Even say it out loud. I notice I'm having the thought, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I didn't see this. I notice I'm having that thought. You just notice it. That's all it is. It's just a thought. It's going to come and it's going to go. But the way in which we develop a relationship with our thoughts is how we can foster our agency and growth. There's fleeting thoughts of like when you're driving and you're thinking, gosh, did I lock the back door? Did I close the garage? It doesn't really attach to us in the same way where it creates emotions and energy because it's just, but then the other thoughts that we attach to of I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I didn't see this. What's wrong with me? I'm so stupid. I'll always be alone. Those types of thoughts, they're all still just thoughts. Just did I lock the side door? But it's the way in which we relate and we connect and identify with these thoughts where it feels like it's cement inside of us. And so strategies of detaching from that and actually finding a different, almost like texture with a thought, a really helpful strategy. Just my mom can say something to me and I can literally go from 0 to 10 in 10 seconds where I'm like, I
don't know what you're talking about.
I literally want to break something right now. I only have 2 people in my life where they can literally make me see red. You could say the same thing to me that my mom just said, and it has absolutely no connection or relationship because of the relationship, because of the meaning of it. These are triggers. It's like when they say something, you know exactly what they're trying to aim at, and it's triggering. It just cause these like negative spirals. Just it gets you in a bad funk. Sometimes you're just like, I want this out of me. But every time this happens, this is like this slow growing day to day. Whenever you notice this, if you're having one of these spirals, okay, what can you take from this? What can you learn and understand about yourself? What can you learn and understand about this person? How can you do something different in the future? Maybe, I don't know, block your mom, or maybe don't answer that call. Or if it's an ex, don't respond to that email. What can you do? Where can you foster your agency and control to create different outcomes?
That leads us into a conversation about post-separation abuse, right? Because I think so many people, it's one thing to get out on the other side of a relationship and heal the trauma that it inflicted, but when you are forced to continue to have a relationship with this person, possibly for the rest of your life, in some way, not necessarily a relationship, but contact, right? When they have access to you because they're your co-parent, it can be a lot, that healing process can take a lot longer and the boundaries need to be a lot stronger. So how do you work with women? Or people to allow those feelings and then also foster that agency that you were just talking about?
Yeah, so this comes up all the time. I don't know of too many people who can truly do the no contact, even though studies show again and again that really is the quickest way to heal and grow and evolve. Everyone I work with, we all have kids or maybe a business together, or maybe there's citizenship constraints, whatever it is. It's really, I've never really seen this clean slate where it's just don't ever speak to them ever again. And so it's like what is within my control? What is out of my control? What is my problem to solve? What is their problem to solve? Beginning to separate that out. We do not have any control over when they're going to stop harassing us and attacking us and stalking us. We don't have any control over that. What do we have control over is beginning to control our reactions to this, to not feed this fuel to them that it's working, whatever they're doing, the coercive control, the post-separation abuse, intimidation, that it's working. Don't show emotion, don't react, don't get like angry at them. Begin to construct a dynamic ongoing that works for you to try to minimize situations like this. So I encourage everybody, use apps, use court-appointed apps, email or these apps. Stop texting. Stop texting, because then you develop this chronic PTSD where you're like working and it's like, ding, ding, and it just, how do you from that moment on begin to be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to lean in and try to like let this go. It's just not even possible because of the long-standing history of it. Block them. Communicate to them, hey, we are only going to ongoing communicate through our family wizard or some of the other ones, or emails where you are in control over when you read it, which one you read and which one you respond to. If it's on your phone, again, you have less control of that. And it's going to be triggering and it's going to affect your whole day. Really minimize the amount of time you see this person. If you can you do drop off and pick up, maybe in a public place, or have someone else do it. If it's really at the peak of post-separation abuse, where it's just too triggering, have someone else do it. Can you agree on like a friend or a family friend to go and do the pickup and drops off? If that will help alleviate some of this kind of toxic engagement, really limit your amount of responses to these people.
Yes.
This is another thing. I see this all the time.
Paragraphs upon paragraphs.
It's all harassing and accusations, and it's all intentional. They want to cause a reaction out of you. They want to ruin your day. They want to get you into that negative spiral for days where you can't function, because then they feel better. It worked. My strategy worked, and they're going to keep doing it. So that's why don't show emotion. Don't ever react. Don't respond. Be really clear of what, number one, do I have to respond to this email? If they're sending an email or even on a court-appointed app and they're like, you've never done this. I can't believe you did this to our daughter. How dare you? You're a effing blah, 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 and all this. What's the question? You just wanted me to say that I suck as a mom? There's no question. Only respond to emails that you have to based on if you ended up in court. If it's child related, hey, our daughter is sick. She needs to be picked up early. I noticed she hasn't been doing her homework. Yes, we have to respond to those, but be very brief. Stick to the question, stick to the point, show no reaction or emotion at all whatsoever.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to dig into this a little bit deeper and how to do that. Okay, Justine, so we were just talking about how to respond or not respond to these lengthy emails or communications that are designed to get you to engage. And one of the things I always say to my clients is you divorce them physically, you divorce them financially, you divorce them legally. You have to divorce them emotionally, because if you allow yourself to be sucked into their dynamic, you may as well still be married to them. So they're trying to hook you. I always recommend, I know there's some issues, but I really do recommend Bill Eddy's book, BIFF, for co-parent communication, because if you haven't, I talk about it all the time on this podcast. I don't think I've talked about it recently, so I'm going to put it in the show notes, BIFF for co-parent communication. And Justine, you're nodding your head. So obviously we're in agreement on this, right? Let's talk about BIFF. What does that stand for?
BIFF stands for brief, informative, friendly, and firm, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to quiz you.
I know. But this is, you're right. This is how they get their supply of knowing that their tactics work. They want to hurt you and continue to abuse you. And it does work. And so when you keep to this strategy, I notice, and a lot of times I'll have clients like send me their emails of back and forth. And I'll say, okay, why don't you construct an email, a response, and then I'll look at it and we can talk about it. And then we'll tweak things. And
same.
It really ultimately is a formula. Once you have this down, it becomes a formula, and it becomes a little bit easier each time to detach from the fuel that they're trying to do, when you can read through the lines of what they're doing. And I notice bringing humor into it oftentimes can be helpful. Again, going back to the connection of the relationship of the thought, which affects the trigger and the emotional piece. So a lot of times I'll be like, translate this email of what he's really saying. Like, why do you always do this to our daughter? All these accusations and all of this stuff. So I'm like, put yourself in his mindset. What is he really saying from this authentic self of him? Look, I feel completely decapitated. I am so insecure that I do not offer our children anything because I suck as a dad. And so I have to gravitate toward anything that I notice that you're doing and try to stomp on it because I have no sense of self and I lack any capacity of forming a deep, meaningful relationship with our children because I just suck at life. And so I don't know, just whatever it is, exaggerate. What are they really say if you were to read through the lines? So this can be like, I've laughed with clients before when they've translated where they're at. And it does help with detaching of the meaning of it. But I promise you, when you stick to this strategic strategy of communication, it does work because this is actually a way that you're setting the boundary for the narcissist. And they're consistently coming back with, you're not engaging, you're not reacting, you're not playing their game. You're actually just strategically and consistently sticking to the facts, being very brief and short. Don't ever over explain yourself.
Oh, never. Yeah.
Stop over explaining yourself. He does not care. He does not care. I had this one client where he was like, oh, you're always changing the schedule. And she was like, no, I'm not. It was a projection because he's the one who's always dumping things on her and making changes. So she sent this. She didn't send it. She sent it to me first. And I'm like, thank God you sent this to me first because you cannot send this. It was like 2 pages of dates. It probably took her 2 days to go back on her calendar. And she was documenting like she was in court to the judge.
Every time he had done it. He knows.
He actually made accommodations and she was honoring the court order of the custody. And he was not. And I was like, what are you doing? Who are you trying to prove this to? I do notice the over-explaining is a piece of the you've been a victim. Over-explaining, you just don't trust yourself and your behavior. And so you have to gravitate toward proof.
Yes. And it's also because you are coming at this with a mindset of a reasonable human being who is trying to work towards consensus and agreement. Whereas your ex is coming at this through the lens of only power and control. And so the more that so you're trying to explain to them with the false expectation that they'll go, oh shit, you're right. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, you're right. I am the one who keeps doing that. And it's literally never going to happen. Literally never. And so it's so important to recognize, and this is Tina's radical acceptance, right? This radical acceptance of who this person actually is. They are not a person who is interested in coming to consensus with you. They're not interested in agreeing with you. They're interested in power and control and making your life a living hell. And so as soon as you spend 3 hours constructing an email, documenting, they've got you.
Yes, exactly. And when you send it, they're going to know it. That's going to be the feel of like, oh, she's still hooked. It worked. I ruined her day. And this is very enabling. And then they're going to keep doing it. And so you have to stop this pattern of really breaking it, seeing it for what it is ahead of time, having these strategic approaches and being consistent every single time. I promise you. And then also, I do notice this pattern where it's, oh, I have to respond in case if we end up in court. You don't have to respond to every single email. A lot of these accusations are very similar. So no, if he sends you 10, maybe respond to 2. but you don't have to consistently over explain yourself every single time. I promise you, you're good. If you did
That's right.
You're good enough because you've shown the pattern that you've been consistent, strategic.
You've been consistent in responding to things that are necessary to respond to. I want to go back to what you said about a formula, because I think this is really important and interesting, right? That really these communications do follow a formula if you do them right. So what is the formula, if you can lay it out? I know it differs, right? But essentially, it's thank you for your communication, right? What is the formula that you...
Yeah. So I think first off, ask yourself the question, do I need to respond to this? This is like first off, do I need to respond? And think of it in the lens, if for some reason you did end up in court, would this be a response that you need to respond to? If the answer is yes, then, but even with that, there's another piece of don't do it too much. If you have already received an email that is similar to this 5 times in the last 2 weeks, no, you do not need to respond to everyone. So don't respond. But in the event that you do, this is a new topic, or your daughter's sick at school and needs an early pickup or whatever, stick to the facts. What is the question here? What do you need this person to know? How do you need to answer this question? What are the facts? Break this down like an attorney. What are the facts here? Leave accusations, emotions, feelings, anything like that aside. What is he really asking? What is the answer? What is the problem here? What is a reasonable solution? And lastly, always keep it very brief. If you are 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences, that's too long. Break it down. If you've written your email, go back or maybe have somebody else look at it. What can I take out? I've done this too before where I'm like, this is actually too long. What are the facts that you need them to know? What is your answer? What's the problem that you're trying to solve here? And again, leave out any kind of accusations or emotions. Just stick to what you notice in the best interest of your child. So I notice when people have this kind of framework in mind, this is how they're able to quicker and easier create strategic responses, that are appropriate and begin to detach. And if you do have those emails where it's really triggering, set it aside. Or is it more helpful for somebody else to read it and paraphrase if you do need to respond and it's too triggering? Could somebody else maybe read it and just say, hey, he's asking about this and that. What would you like? At least you can have a framework from there. But so this is the piece of separating out what is within my control, what is out of my control. You don't have any control of these stopping, but you do have control over what you can do to try to minimize and reduce the reaction or these spirals of these. Don't read as many of them or have a friend do it.
I think it's a great place for a coach, for a therapist to say, what is he trying to say? And because what I see with my clients all the time is what he's really saying all these things, and it's okay, but do you have to respond to any of those things? No. And the only thing you need to respond to is the answer to this one question, right? So they're going to send you this long ass thing. And the thing is, I think you do somewhat have control over how they are going to act by not picking up what they're putting down, right? Because then it's no fun for them. And eventually they may escalate, but you keep not picking up what they're putting down. Eventually it's no fun for them. And they actually will probably stop a lot sooner. If they send you 2 pages of whatever, and your response is, thanks so much for your email. In answer to your question, yes, Sarah does have soccer at 6:30 on Thursday. Look forward to seeing you there, or whatever it is, or see you there. They're going to be so fucking irate that you didn't engage, but you're just responding to the one thing that needs to be responded to. And that's strategy.
Yes, it's not giving them the supply that they're wanting. It's not reinforcing this behavior of engaging, arguing back, firing back, explaining yourself. You're just not. And so it becomes this like disconnection almost. I have noticed almost, it feels almost like this OCD type of behavior where it's like this obsession of I have to respond, I have to respond, I have to respond, I have to respond. And then this behavior of responding to every single one because you don't want to miss anything. A lot of these clients, I think, they're perfectionists. They are very successful. They are very smart. And this can almost work against you with strategies like this, where it's no, you don't have to respond to every single one. I promise you're good. Another thing I noticed is this court. I just posted a video on this recently, threatening going back to court.
Oh, yes. Isn't that a great one? Oh, yeah. But you know what? Let's take a quick pause for just one more quick break for a word from our sponsor. I want to come back and talk about that. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about the threats of I'm going to take you back to court. What do you advise your clients or women who are listening about these threats?
For one, this is a threat. That's all it is. It does not mean that it is going to happen. Their strategy, their intention, again, their focus is, you're right, for the client, it's like they want to find peace or justice or harmony being co-parents. They don't. They're all about power, control, and winning and dominating. So if they know that threatening the whole court thing, taking you back to court, making changes of the custody arrangement, taking you back to court, switching our weekends, that's what I hear. If the client is not able to accommodate 70% of the times when they're changing their scheduled weekends or dumping last minute the kids on them and they're like, oh no, I can't do it. It's what do they do? Power, control, winning. I'm going to take you back to court and we're going to permanently switch these weekends, or I'm going to get full custody. That's
a good one.
So I'm like, okay, number one, this is intentional. There's a reason. What do you think he's getting from this? By him doing this, threatening this, what do you think he's getting from it? You're scared. You're going to be more likely to do and accommodate him every single time. But again, that cup is never going to be full. It will never be enough. You have to break that. So I always say, stick to the facts and what is in front of you. Have you received a document from the court? Have you been served from anybody? No. Guess what, Kate? It's never happened from anybody that
Miller.
So many times. It's never actually happened. So he can threaten all he wants that he's going to take you to court and make sure that you're in jail for the rest of your life. Who effing cares? Stick to what the facts are. Do you follow the custody guidelines? Yes, you do. Too much, probably. Have you been accommodating to a reasonable level? Yes, too much, I notice. Do you honor all of the holidays and all of that stuff? Yes, these people are so scared about doing anything wrong that they follow everything to a T. So I'm like, this is your proof. In the event that worst case scenario happened, which again, it never happens, and I've never seen it happen, particularly when you've been finalized for a while, stick to the facts because this is your proof and this can help build and foster confidence and autonomy. He knows this works. So don't let him know that it works. Detach from it.
Yes. And also the most important thing you can do is educate yourself on what the facts actually are, because 9 times out of 10, what I see is women who actually don't know the facts. And so they are taking their abuser's word for what the facts are, right? Instead of Google in your state or ask your attorney or ask your coach or your therapist, hey, is this actually, he's saying this thing, is this even in the realm of the law? And if the answer, and find out that the answer is no, so that you can stand back and go, that's not even a thing. And I see this with women who are saying that, try to tell their husbands that they want to get a divorce, is that they'll say, you're not going to get any money. You're going to get nothing. You're not going to get the house. You're going to get no support. I'm going to take the kids away. And that is a control tactic to keep them in the relationship. you have to know before you have any kind of conversation about this, you have to know what the facts are so that when they try this, you can go, that's just not how the law works, but okay, fine. If that's your threat, if that's your best shot, sorry.
Yeah, it puts you at a much stronger position to take this and begin to detach. I have noticed that there is this emotional piece too underlying where even if they had attorneys, everyone around them saying, this ain't going to happen, you're fine. It's like this obsession of, but it could. And this is feeding into a little bit of the complex PTSD of living in this anxiety and just ridden with fear of the unknown of what could happen. And worst case scenario, oh my God, it's going to be awful. So sometimes addressing that piece of it of, okay, let's break this down. You're going to court. Would the world come to an end? Could you handle it? Worst case scenario happens. Like, what are you afraid of? Sometimes it's just this thought of, oh my gosh, you've already been through a fucking shit show for the last God knows how many years. Could you handle it?
Could you handle going to court and standing up for yourself and presenting the facts to a judge?
Exactly. Could you handle it?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You've been through worse. The worst is already over. This is going to take a lot of time. But it's like sometimes just shifting that relationship with that worst case scenario fear, that anxiety can be helpful to detach from it. Okay. Live in more ease or that radical acceptance. Okay. Do I like this? No. Did I want this? No. Did I ask for it? No. Do I deserve this? No. Can I handle it? This is what's in front of me.
That's right.
I can handle it.
Yeah. So good. So good. Okay, tell everyone about your book, where they can find it, all the things.
So my book, you could purchase it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I wrote this book from my heart and a lot of personal examples. I tried to gather like clients and protected their identity. But yeah, I don't know. It's just been really exciting. This will probably be the last book that I write. I'm like, usually some people are like, I just want to write more books. And I don't know. This was like a lot for me. And I'm so glad that I did it. I connected with so many more other people. And I wrote it from my heart, but I don't know if I'll do it again. We'll see. But
so this is your last chance, is what she's saying. If you want to read anything that Justine has written, this is it.
One and only chance.
One and done. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Exactly.
Having just published my book too, it's a lot. And Justine, just out of curiosity, because we didn't talk about this, is this also this comes from your personal history, or is this just your experience with clients?
The book?
All of your work, all of this. Yeah.
Oh, both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I thought so.
I noticed that a lot of people that are in this field, there's a lot of psychologists, and it just angers me that do not understand this type of abuse. I personally saw shrinks in the past who, when I look back, I'm like, wow, how are they even licensed? They did not get it. And they actually caused a lot more pain and problems. And so I noticed that people who are shrinks getting into coaching, particularly in this industry, at least all the ones that I've met have personal experience.
Of course, we all do. Of course we do. That's right. Yeah.
That we're like, you just get it. You don't even have to explain anything. You just get it.
And because when you go to school, when you get your degree in whatever kind of therapy, whatever training you do, there is 0 mandated hours of domestic violence training. So most of them don't know. They just don't. I think that's, as with the courts and everything else, is inexcusable, but this is where we're at.
It's scary that people like this are dictating the lives of our children and making decisions like this with so little education and information. And
that's right.
I'm noticing there's a lot of narcissism too in the courtroom.
Yeah. With family court judges, you think?
No idea what you're talking about.
What? Yeah, absolutely. So much. You mean old white men in robes? What? Oh dear, God help us all. Justine, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation. I think it's a really important conversation, and I hope people will go out and buy your book. How the fuck do I heal from this? By Dr. Justine Weber. Justine, where can people find you and follow along with all of your work?
So I have a website for my coaching business, Dr. Justine Weber with 1B in Weber.com. And I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And my videos I'm very proud of. I get a lot of really good content just from rich stuff that I'm hearing about from clients. So I really create the content based on what I'm noticing and like patterns that I'm seeing from clients. And so I think my social media, the videos I think are very useful for people, very practical, very relatable, very, what people are struggling with, like in the moment, patterns. Anyways, yeah,
go follow along, y'all. Yeah.
It's been a journey with my social media. I finally hired a company. Shrinks are not really good at.
But I love that you guys are now like in it because I think it's really important. There used to be a time where that was actually frowned upon and you shouldn't do it and all of those things. And now it's no, please educate people with what's actually happening, what you're seeing in your offices and your practices. I think it's great. I love that you're doing it. So thank you so much. So Dr. Justine Weber, everybody, Weber 1B. And the book is How the Fuck Do I Heal from This? This is a favorite of mine, you guys. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Yes, you too. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.